Hello and welcome to another episode of the UCLA Bruins Insider Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Connor Moreno, lead writer for UCLA Bruins on SI. And after a very long off season, at least it felt very long off season full of, just talk and, attention from national media, a pretty big recruiting month in June, UCLA football finally returns tomorrow on Saturday when they start their season against Utah. And so in today's episode, I figured we would go through the schedule. I'd give my official prediction on every single game, and eventually come up with what I think is my official UCLA football prediction for this next season. So just the way we're going to do it is we're just going to go through every single team. I'm going to kind of talk about the game and kind of give my prediction, talk about a little bit of both sides just from what I've been reading. I mentioned this just a few times before on this podcast, but I am pretty new to the college football scene. I've always watched it from afar, but I was never fully engulfed. So all the information that I have, partially including UCLA, I've been covering UCLA daily for about 3 months now. All the information I have is just, from reading reports and whatnot and all that stuff. So pardon me if my opinion isn't up to your standards, even though it's an opinion. Anyway, so we're going to start with Utah, and that's going to be our bigger talking point. We're going to talk more about that game than any other game. And then towards the end, we'll go ahead and I'll go ahead and give my prediction for every single game and then just come up on the season. So yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So up first, of course, we have Utah tomorrow on Saturday. The Bruins are going to be, I think, 5.5-point underdogs in this game against the Utes. I'm not buying it. If it were me, I'm putting my money on the UCLA money line. I do not bet. I don't gamble. That's not something I'm supposed to do or care to do. I shouldn't have even said any of that, but I don't care to gamble. Anyways, if I were a betting man, I should say, I'm going to go ahead and choose UCLA in this one. I feel like a lot of the noise out of camp has really sold me. I do feel like UCLA is a better team than last season, not only just because of Nico Iamaleava, but I really feel like a lot of people are kind of underrating Deshaun Foster having a full offseason under his belt. And I think that's going to translate well, not only within the locker room, but on the field and into results. And I labeled this Utah game as UCLA's most important game of the season because I think either way it comes out, it has tremendous effects on the rest of the season. So if UCLA beats Utah, then I'm pretty sure that they're going to beat UNLV the next week, New Mexico the week after that. Then they have a bye, and then they open up conference play with Northwestern. And that's a 4-0 start if they beat Utah, honestly, in my opinion. So I do think a 4-0 start is likely. I do think it's possible, and that starts with Utah. And I kind of gave away the next results, but I do have UCLA beating Utah tomorrow night on Saturday. So that is a 1-0 start for my predictions. Up next, UNLV. Now, I'm going to say, a lot of these games have a lot to do with games prior or this season behind it, but I'm just going to try and stick to game by game without, having any of this conjecture in the end and bringing in other games. So UNLV, notably, were kind of scorned by national media for barely defeating FCS Idaho State. And that really reflected in the odds makers, as entering the season, UNLV was actually slightly favored by ESPN's Football Power Index. They were slightly favored over UCLA in the game. After that, it completely flipped. UCLA's heavy favorites, and I do think that that's accurate. I feel like UCLA is just kind of a more complete team, at least from what I saw and what I read about UNLV. So I have UCLA beating the Rebels. That is a 2-0 start. And then we're moving on to New Mexico. We don't have to spend too much time on this, but UCLA should easily handle New Mexico. That's a 3-0 start. So 3-0 non-conference, I'm sure you'll take that any day of the week if you're UCLA, if you're a fan, if you're Deshaun Foster. I'm sure you'll take a 3-0 start any day of the week. Up next, we have Northwestern to open up Big Ten play. Now, Northwestern, just from all the power rankings, everything going into the season, they are going to be underdogs against UCLA. UCLA will be favored against Northwestern, and I feel like, some people, have said, college football is weird and any team could win on any given Saturday, and that is true. That is true. And, this Northwestern game, especially on the road, is the perfect storm for UCLA to lose a game that they should win. But I do think, starting 3-0, momentum after that. I know I said I wouldn't bring past games into it, but, I just feel like UCLA is a more complete, together team, and I feel like that they're going to be able to ride momentum off of wins pretty well. And I do think that Northwestern will be a win for UCLA. So that's a 4-0 start. And I've been saying it the last month or so as I've been previewing the season. I do think that UCLA can start 4-0. After that, we have Penn State. That is at the Rose Bowl. I do think UCLA will lose that game. One of, if not the best football team in the nation, Penn State. It's, obviously UCLA is going to be heavily underdogged. It is at the Rose Bowl, so there is some of that upset factor. I do believe that if there were a game for UCLA to pull a complete upset, I think that the most impactful one would be Penn State and not even Ohio State, because that one's on the road. Let me think about that, actually. Because upsetting Ohio State on the road would actually be a lot more impactful. But it also depends on, the time of the season and where you are at in the season. But I do think UCLA loses to Penn State. That is a 4-1 start. And then we move on to Michigan State the week after that. That one is on the road, and that one is a 9 a.m. Pacific time gameplay. But it will be, I think, about 11 or 12 Michigan time. I think it's 11 because they're Central. That will be 11 Central Time, so hopefully they have enough time to acclimate to the game time and whatnot. But it's going to be a test. UCLA is a better team going into the season than Michigan State is, but it is going to be a test for UCLA. But I do have them winning. I do think that they're going to be a complete enough team to win this game. And you could say the same thing about Maryland the next week. Maryland at home, one of the worst teams in the Big Ten. I do think UCLA will easily handle that. So that right there is a 6-1 start. If towards the end of last season you asked you told any UCLA fan that the next season they would start the season 6-1 after finishing last season 5-7, they probably would have looked at you crazy. But I do think that is very very much possible to start 6-1. And then after that, you have at Indiana. I do think that's going to be a loss for the Bruins. So that's a 6-2 start. And then the week following, you have Nebraska. Nebraska is going to be a scrappy team. I do think that the Cornhuskers will be favored going into that matchup against the Bruins. But I'm going to have to say UCLA. I think that by the time in that season when teams are, establishing their identity and they, played together for a very long time, I do think that UCLA has enough depth and talent to come out on top against Nebraska. So that's a 7-2 start. And then the next 3 games we have on the road against Ohio State. I'm just going to pen that in as a loss. The defending champs, I just think that's a loss. The week after that, you have Washington and USC. Now, I'm split on the Washington and USC. The way I see it is that the last 4 games, which is Nebraska, Ohio State, Washington, USC, I do think that the Bruins could win 2 of those. The 2 being one of Nebraska, Washington, and USC. A little wrinkle in the USC game, it is on the road, but the away team, I think, has won the last 6 matchups of the rivalry game between UCLA and USC. So if that continues this season, then that would be great. Washington, I do think UCLA, according to the odds makers and all that, are a better team. And power rankings are a better team than Washington, but that might be one of those games where UCLA just kind of falls on its face and loses a game that they should win. So that being said, my official prediction for UCLA's 2025 season is an 8-4 overall record with a 5-4 conference record. That gets you a bowl game. That is a 3-win increase on last season, and I mean, I'm pretty sure Nico Iamaleava will have a pretty good year if that's the case. If they finish 8-4, then I'm pretty sure that means Nico has a really good year. He'll be going to the draft, and then we'll be talking about a whole new Bruins team going into next season. But that is my official prediction. 8-4 for UCLA. And yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. UCLA season finally starts tomorrow. We'll see you next time.